All right, let's chat about the 2023 Women's World Cup. We want to hit you all with some way too early World Cup predictions. The World Cup going to be hosted by Australia and New Zealand, kicking off on July 20th. We are officially 8 months out. It's going to be the first year of an expanded format. There's going to be 32 nations competing in this iteration of the World Cup. There's currently 28 teams that have locked their place in the World Cup, but there are still 3 spots open for 10 teams who are competing for the final 3 spots in an intercontinental tournament that's going to take place in February. So either, a number of teams are still slotting into various groups. We know that for Group E with the United States women's national team, it can either be a Thailand, a Cameroon, or a Portugal. So we're very, very excited to see the full picture come into play for that group. But there's a lot of fun things to take a look at as we're 8 months out from this World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, 8 months is not a lot of time at all, especially because we're right in the midst of the Men's World Cup at this point. So it's really exciting to kind of preview that. And that's why I wanted to do that. So we're sticking with the theme of eights here throughout this next segment, talking about the World Cup, because 8 months out, July 20th through August 20th will be the World Cup. 32 nations competing in it. Let's get into it. Of these 32 nations competing, Sandra, let's talk about the top 8 nations. So let's hit that, because top 8 nations in the Women's World Cup of the 32, 28 teams for certain, 3 spots still open, as you talked about. But between some of these teams, there's a number of teams that are making their World Cup debut: Morocco, the Philippines, Ireland, Republic of Ireland, Vietnam, Zambia. These are teams that we will see for the very first time. But there's also a lot of heavy hitters, some powerhouse teams, top nations in the World Cup that we're going to see.
Absolutely. Let's go through the top 8, right, for the official FIFA World Cup rankings of these programs. In first place is the United States. Number 2 is Sweden. Number 3 is Germany. Number 4 is England. Number 5 is France. At 6, it's Spain. 7 is Canada, and number 8 is the Netherlands, who will be joining the United States women's national team in their World Cup group. Now, when we're looking at the rankings of these top 8 nations right now, we got to talk a little bit about current form, right? Because when it comes to the official FIFA rankings, it's a very complex series of equations that come into play. It's number of games, it's total points, it's coefficients, it's all of it, right?
Just too much math.
There's too much. There is such a thing as too much math sometimes, and this is probably one of those things. But in terms of this current 8 that we just rattled off, in terms of all the soccer that we've watched in this year alone, not counting all the stuff from years prior, but even in just this year alone, we're looking at this current ranking, and we're looking at maybe some of the final months to close out 2022. Do you see any of these teams shifting just in terms of recent form? Would you rank one higher than the other? I know for you and I watching soccer this year, taking a look at a team like England and their current form, they just feel like they're the top team in best form right now. And based off of that, I think maybe we would have them sit somewhere at number 1.
Yeah, I think that England is definitely a team that you have to look at this point, because they went on a bit of a run during the Euros, ended up winning the Euros, but they beat Sweden 4-0 in the semifinal of the Euro tournament. And I think that's something that you kind of have to circle and put your eye on, because the Euros is one of the top tournaments in the world, because it has so many top level teams in it, like England, Germany, Spain, Sweden. And the fact that England was able to come out on top of that, we cannot sleep on them. Yeah. Also, you look at very recent form, the United States just went to Wembley and played against England. And we all remember how that match happened. The United States did not win. England won. And that was a game that England played incredibly well against the United States. And because of that, I think that bolsters up England's standings at this point. And with the FIFA rankings, no, they're not number one by any means, but in what they're number 4 in the FIFA rankings. But I think that they're just that much higher. And when you look at it from the lens of the World Cup, of the United States and who they're going to play against, I think that the competition and the mentality and the competition between nations in general, that bolsters them up a little bit too. So I would put England a little bit higher on this list than FIFA has them ranked. But to be honest, I'm not doing any math in my calculations. And honestly, when you look at this, like I also think that Canada should be in these top teams. This is a nation that, I know we're talking about recent form, but they are Olympic gold medalists from the Tokyo 2020 Olympics that happened in 2021. You look at their most recent form in the CONCACAF championship that happened this summer in Mexico. They made it to the final. They competed against the United States. Then they went on a slew of friendlies where they ended up winning 6 of them or 5 of them back to back to back. They played against Brazil, split those 2 matches 2-1, won 1, lost 1 against Brazil. But Canada was playing heavy competition. I think that Canada deserves to be higher on this list as well.
I think it's interesting to sort of just look at the official rankings and then sort of look at current form. And I just think that even if we were to take a widen that and look to the top 10, but if you're really narrowing it down to the top 8, just the level of play right now globally, especially to close out the calendar year, when we saw that final international window, not just for the United States, but teams all over the world, it just feels like, again, those margins for error are so narrow when
Yeah.
we're talking about these specific teams, as some of them might go head to head in knockout round stages of the World Cup, that some of those score lines might be a little slimmer than what we might see in those earlier group stage matches. And it really, really can be anyone's game. It could be anyone's day. I mean, we saw Australia, thump Sweden 4-0. We saw England continue their run of form by beating Japan, who was a very, very good tactical team, and give that team a bit of a blowout as well. So just looking at this top 8, even if it's whether you're looking at the official rankings on FIFA, or if you're, ranking them yourself personally, I just think that, and depending on the day, depending on the tournament, we could see some real good soccer. I don't even want to call them upsets, because I think at phase in this era of football that there's not going to be there's not going to be any shame in a number 1 losing to a number 4, or a number 4 dropping to a number 8. It's just these teams and the way that they're competing against each other are still finding ways to surprise their opposition, and sort of, really surprise the audiences who are tuning in at times to take a look at some of these games. If you have to look at the top 8 that I ran down on the FIFA rankings, if you had to restructure, maybe let's just do like a top 4. Who would be your top 4 right now?
Ooh, I like this. Restructuring. Is this only going from the top 8 that FIFA has out there right now?
You know what? I don't want to limit you, buddy. So
Wow, thank you. I like that we just make up our own rules here on
I
Attack
love it.
for the games we play.
I love
So
it.
top 8 right now: US, Sweden, Germany, England, France, Spain, Canada, Netherlands. I would put England much higher on that list. I would also put Australia higher on that list as well. So I'm going top 4 you wanted me to give you.
Yeah.
I'll give you England. I will give you Germany. Australia and the United States.
Wow, nice. You believe in Matildas. Look at you.
I do, especially, I mean, I'm also looking at it in the lens of the World Cup, and they're hosting this World Cup.
Yeah.
I think that really bolsters up a team. It does. It really does. I mean, you look at England and the Euros, and then playing at Wembley. I mean, there's Australia went and beat Sweden 4-0. So I think that Sweden being number 2 on the FIFA rankings is a little too high.
Okay. Listen.
I don't.
They've had some interesting results in 2022 if you're Sweden. We talked a lot about, like, national teams going out there and having some of their fixtures over the course of 2022, and a lot of what is taking place in 22 is some of the groundwork for the build up to the World Cup. And I wouldn't doubt that Sweden is one of these teams that is maybe looking at some of their past results, saying, hey, what can we tune up here? Here's some things that we learned, and let's try to capitalize and fix those things. But I hear you. I think
I
if
want
you're
to hear
going off,
your top four. I want to hear your top four.
I don't disagree with a lot of what you have already in place. I'm with you in terms of England number 1 and Germany number 2. I would put in, based on form, USA, maybe bump them down to 3. If I had to go and give that top 4 spot, I don't know if I'm going with Australia. There's just some things that I think, again, talking about things that teams need to tune up. I always look at Australia as this team. What type of defense are we going to get from Australia, depending on the game or the day or the opposition that they're facing. So I don't know if I'm going with Australia as number 4. I think maybe I would keep either Spain or even Canada in that top 4. You know what? Let's CONCACAF supremacy. I'm gonna go with Canada. I'm gonna go with Canada. Let's keep Canada at number 4 for me. I like what they've been doing in 2022. But that's what I would go. I would be scared to face any of those teams: England, USA, Germany, or Canada. I think going into the World Cup.
Yeah, I think Canada is a team that people cannot sleep on. They cannot sleep on Canada. They're one of my top nations that I put at the top 8 for me, because I think that they are up there. They're going to compete in this World Cup. They're going to come out and show teams a little bit something different than maybe people forgot about, because in September they played Australia, then in October they played Argentina, Morocco, and then they just played Brazil. So Canada's playing really tough competition in their friendlies leading up to this.